Hi students, in this video lecture we will discuss about the synopsis of gravitation chapter, which will be more beneficial for second PU students. Why is we are going to do gravitation chapter synopsis by comparing most of the formulas with the formulas of electrostatics. So in electrostatics we have done so many derivations, right? So many results we have. So we will compare them with gravitation chapter, and then many similar formulas will come, which really helps you to remember formulas easily, because it is like remembering one set of formulas. You will be able to find another set of formulas for the other chapter. So if you know formulas for electrostatics, you can find the formulas for gravitation chapter. Similarly, if you know the formulas of gravitation chapter, you can find the formulas of electrostatics. Okay, actually it is formulae, but I'm calling it formulas. Okay, so let us discuss. So here let me mention electrostatics, and here let me write gravitation. Okay, so in electrostatics we have Coulomb's law, right? So it says if you have 2 point charges Q1, Q2, then depending on the sign of the charges, whether it is positive, negative, or positive, positive, or negative, negative, there will be some force, and that magnitude of the force is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1, Q2 by R square. R is the distance between the charges, right? And you know that if they are like charges, the force will be repulsive, and if they are unlike charges, the force will be attractive, right? So the force can be either repulsive or it can be attractive. This is for which situation? When the product of the charges is greater than 0. That means both are of same sign. Positive, positive will be positive, so greater than 0. Negative, negative also will be positive. If you multiply negative with negative, you will get positive. So this is for product of charges greater than 0, and this attractive force will happen for product of charges less than 0, because one charge is positive, other charge will be negative. So product will be negative. Negative means less than 0. So it will be attractive. But magnitude is given by this formula. So this is for point charges. Point charges, right? Similarly, you have, let us say, point masses. Suppose you have 2 point masses. Okay, and the masses are m1, m2. Then there will also be a gravitational force between these masses, and that is given by magnitude is g m1 m2 by r square. The only difference is here you can have two flavors of charge, positive and negative. Here there is only positive masses, and masses always only attract, they don't repel. Okay, so here the force between them will always be attractive. Of course, the force magnitude will be same, direction will be opposite from Newton's third law. Both of them will feel same force. Okay, magnitude wise it will be same, direction wise it will be opposite. Now, if you compare this formula with this formula, what we have understood, that wherever there is charge in this chapter, we have to replace it by mass. Correct or not? Q1, Q2 is nothing but, here it is nothing but M1, M2. Distance will be same only. This is R. And here 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, in the formulas, if there is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, you should replace it by G. Also, if I put medium, you know the force changes. Here the force will not change. So here epsilon R, you should write here it as 1, because gravitational force does not depend on the medium. Okay, so if you put water here, it doesn't matter. So if there, even if there is a dielectric medium, the force, gravitational force will remain same. So this is a universal constant. But this constant here depends on the medium. We have seen that, right? Okay. So that's the first thing to remember. This thing should be converted to this. That you have to try to remember. Okay. Now, if you look carefully this, I'm saying wherever there is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, you can write g. That means wherever there is epsilon naught, what you can write? Take epsilon naught here, g here. You can write 1 by 4 pi g. So if there is only epsilon naught in some formula, like in Gauss law, you have epsilon naught, right? Here you have to replace it by 1 by 4 pi g. Okay, students, remember that. Please pause the video and write. Then here we have superposition principle, right? If you have three charges and you want to find force on this charge, then first you have to find force on this by this, assuming this is not there. Then find force on this by this, assuming this is not there. Then you take the vector sum. So let us say this is q q q for simplicity. Then what will be the net force? This will repel this with one force here. Let us say it is F. That will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught QQ by this R square. Let us say this is L. 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 To make it simple, I have chosen equilateral triangle here. Okay. So this will be L square. Then this will be repelled by this also. That will be also same only, right? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught QQ by this R square, which is L. Then resultant force will be along the diagonal of this parallelogram. That is the net force. And the net force will be how much? Root 3f. Why root 3? Because this angle is how much? 60 degree. Same as this angle. Right? So if this is 60 degree, this is also 60 degree. So if the angle is 60 degree, you know the formula for resultant of two vectors. Root over first vector square magnitude, second vector square magnitude, plus twice into magnitude of first vector, magnitude of second vector, cos of angle between the two vectors which you are adding. Cos 60 is half. 2 and 2 will cancel, so root 3f. Then you put this f here. So that is how we find the resultant force on one charge when there are multiple charges by using superposition principle. Similarly, let us say you have one mass here, one particle here of mass m, and here one particle of mass m. The only difference is, remember, gravitational is always attractive. So if I want net force on this will be attracted to this with some force F. This will be attracted to this with some force F. So resultant force will be same only, root 3F. But the direction wise it will not be same. It will be this side. So that will be your net force. And F, what will you write? Root 3 G m1 m2 will be m square by r square. Let us say this distance is L here also. So L square. Okay. So that is how we can find the net force. Okay. Hope you all understood, right? Okay. Then in electrostatics, if you remember, if there is a line charge, infinitely long line charge, then at a distance of r, here if I want to find electric field, if you remember, electric field will be this way. Okay, like this. I cannot say radially outwards, but you can say radially outwards, but you cannot include this radius. It is this way, no? If it is a sphere, then I can say it is radially outwards. Point charge, it is radially outwards. Spherical charge also radially outwards. Radially means from a given point which is center, electric field will go like this in all direction. Here it is not going in all direction, here also, here also. So in a plane, if you cut this, suppose this is the line charge, if you make a plane here, then it will be radially outwards on this plane. On this plane, it will be radially outwards. Similarly, on this plane, it will be radially outwards. Okay. So that is how electric field lines look like for a line charge. And what was the formula? We used which law? Gauss law to derive. Yes or no? we considered a cylindrical Gaussian surface, and we found the formula to be lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught r. Right? Now, what I can do here is write this formula as 2 lambda by 4 pi epsilon naught r. And lambda should be clearly understood as, suppose you take some length here, dl, and in that dl, the charge is, let's say, dq, and lambda is dq by dl, dq by dl. Now, if lambda is uniform, in this problem we have used uniform distribution, then I can simply write it as q by l also. Q by L, where Q is charge of some length, L is the length of that part of the charged wire. Okay. For what I'm saying is, to find this lambda, you can take some length, find the charge on that length, then divide the charge by the length. That is called linear charge density. Okay, students. Now, for gravitation chapter, instead of line charge, you will have line mass. So you can take a wire. A wire has mass, no, you don't have to charge it. See, in order to have charge, you need to take electrons out, or you need to give electrons, new electrons. To have mass, you just have to be. If you are, you have mass, right? So this line mass could be a wire, could be this pen also. Approximately, you can take this as a line mass, provided it is very long. So at this point, if you want to know the gravitational field, then that will be your lambda by, okay, what I should do, lambda will be lambda only. This 2 I'll write here. And 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught can be written as what I told, g. So it will be g 2 lambda by r. G 2 lambda by r. Correct, no? Okay. So wherever is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, you can write g. Then 2 lambda. The only difference is lambda will be what? Mass per unit length, not charge per unit length. Wherever charge is there, you have to replace it by mass. So take some length. In this length, if I say mass is m, then this is your lambda. And what will be lambda? Linear mass density. Direction will be where? For electric field, it depends on the sign of the charge. If it is positive, it is outwards. If it is negative, it is towards, right? But for gravity, it is always attractive, so it is always this side. So field is always attractive. Okay, students. Now make note of this also. Similarly, you can write formula for sheet of charge. Okay, other things also you can do yourself now. What about field? How to find the field? So electric field, if you remember, electric field at a point was defined as force experienced by some charge, which is quite small, divided by that charge, and this was called your test charge. Remember, right? So find the force on a test charge and divide by the test charge. So electric field is basically what? Force per unit charge. Meaning electric field at a point will give you force on 1 coulomb charge placed at that point. Which means if I want to find force on some other charge q, assuming the distribution of the source charge is not changed, then my force will be q into E. Right? Similarly, in gravitation, you can define something called gravitational field. This is your gravitational field, which is also called gravitational field intensity. Because here also this E is sometimes called electric field intensity. So how will you define it? Force experienced by some mass, not charge but mass, divided by mass. Okay, so if you want to find force on any mass, you write m into Eg. But if you think carefully, what is this force by mass? Force by mass is acceleration from Newton's second law. So what we call gravitational field in gravitation chapter is nothing but acceleration due to gravity. Is acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so in this chapter, your gravitational field is nothing but acceleration due to gravity at that point. Unlike here, because force by charge is not called acceleration in Newton's second law, but force by mass we say acceleration. So to find the force, you can also find the gravitational field, which is nothing but acceleration, and then multiply with g. Now the value of g, you have a feeling that it is 9.8 meter per second square. That is only true for spherical mass. Spherical mass that also near the surface. Just now I showed you gravitational field for line mass. For line mass, the formula was 2g lambda by r. So it depends on r. So it is not a fixed value. So don't think that this is 9.8 all the time. When is this 9.8? This is 9.8 provided you are near a spherical mass. Spherical mass like Earth. Not like Earth. If it is 9.8, then it means Earth only. Then it is Earth only. Okay, because for Moon the value of this will change. Okay, fine. So again, what we say as gravitational field intensity is nothing but acceleration due to gravity. Then in electrostatics, we studied about spherical mass also, right? Here gravitation, let me write. So here, if you have a spherical mass, okay, let us say it is a hollow sphere right now, hollow sphere, or it could be conductor also. If it is solid, then it should be conductor, so that whatever formulas I give you will be correct. Okay, right now. So for hollow sphere, the charge will be only on the outer surface, which is hollow, no, inside nothing is there. And if it is solid, but if it is conductor, then also the charge will stay only on the outer surface. For conductor, we already know charge inside the conductor has to be zero. Electrostatic conditions. Okay, now let us say total charge is Q, and I want electric field outside. Electric field outside. Then outside, if you remember, the formula for electric field, Gauss law we used, was 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, the source charge divided by r square. Right? Then if I put any charge Q here, suppose I put some charge Q here, then that charge will feel a force, electrostatic force, which is given by Q into E, which is this E. Out I wrote because it is outside the sphere. Okay, but even if you don't keep any charge here, still this source charge will produce electric field. Similarly, if you have mass, but it is hollow mass, okay, hollow spherical mass, hollow spherical mass, okay, then at a point outside, okay, if the mass of this hollow sphere is capital M, then what will be the gravitational field? Either I can write Eg or I can write just G. Let me write magnitude only. G also I can write, because what I say is gravitational field is force per unit mass, and force per unit mass is acceleration due to gravity at that point. So that will be how much? What I should do? This one should be replaced by G, right? This source charge should be replaced by this mass, source mass, divided by this r square. Correct or not? Now, if you write this formula in terms of this radius, capital R, and this height h, this is height from the surface of the sphere, then at that point I can also write G equal to Gm by R plus h whole square. And if you remember, this is the formula for acceleration due to gravity at a height. You remember, no? In first PU we have done this formula. Correct, no? Okay. Fine. Please make a note. Then if you have a spherical charge, hollow sphere, again hollow, okay, mention that very clearly. Or if it is conductor, then also the formulas will work. So now electric field at some this radius is capital R, let's say, at some distance small r. If I want electric field at this point, then inside if I want electric field, then the answer is 0. So we know from Gauss law electric field inside is 0, because if you draw a Gaussian surface, the net charge inside this is 0, right? So electric field inside the inside the hollow charged sphere is 0. Similarly, if you have a hollow mass, if you have a hollow mass, don't put charge here, okay, because mass is something which is always there, right? So if it is a hollow sphere, and don't forget to write these names, because everything in the diagram will look like circle only. So if it is a hollow sphere, then at any distance r inside, the gravitational field, which is G, will be 0 at any point. At any point, doesn't matter. Only not only at the center. That was for solid mass, which I will tell you now. First, I am doing for hollow mass. Hollow. Inside nothing is there, and it is hollow sphere. So gravitational field inside is 0. So based on this, one very nice question was there in NCERT. So they asked you that if you have a hemisphere, then at this point, which one will be the direction of gravitational field intensity at this point? This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, like that. So which one will be the direction of gravitational field at this point? Then the answer is this one. So this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Why it has to be that way? First of all, mass is here. So if you put any unit mass here, it will be attracted this way, right? So gravitational field is nothing but gravitational force per unit mass. So if you put a unit mass here, it will be attracted this way. So gravitational field will be that way only. Understood or not? And it has to be that way so that when you take the upper half if you add, then upper half will produce same field this way. Same field it will produce this way. So total will be how much? 0. So for a hollow sphere, just now I told electric field inside is 0. If it is 0 inside, it is 0 at the center also. So this lower half will produce gravitational field this way towards it. It is always towards, okay, for gravity, because for gravity we don't have positive charge, negative charge like that. So the lower half will produce gravitational field towards it, and upper half will produce towards it. So total will be 0. So that is something very easy to understand. But for same question, if I ask, I have a hollow spherical shell, hollow spherical shell, okay, and instead of asking at the center, suppose I ask here, then in what direction will be the gravitational field intensity? Now look here, most students know, they will think, okay, this point is nearer to this mass, so they feel like this mass will attract. If you put a unit mass here, this mass will attract more, they feel. So they will feel the field should be this way. If you do that, then you are doing wrong. Why? Because when you add the upper half, one more half if you add, listen carefully, if you add the upper half, then that upper half, if lower half is producing field this way, then upper half will produce this way. Yes or no? By symmetry, if lower half is pulling the unit mass this way, then upper half will pull the unit mass this way. So total will be, so when I add both of them, total will be this way. Yes or no? But I just told you total must be 0. Gravitational field inside the hollow sphere is 0. At which point it doesn't matter. Inside it is 0. So since it is 0 inside, it is very clear that due to lower half, it cannot be at some angle. So by symmetry, it has to be which way? So if I give you a hollow sphere, then gravitational field at any point here should also be this way only. So that when you add the upper half, it will be this way. So total will be 0. Okay, students? So be careful. Center one, everybody feels it should be this way. But this point, they don't feel it unless they know about the concept that gravitational field inside a hollow sphere is 0. And that, if you remember, is called Newton's shell theorem. Shell matlab hollow sphere only, right? Okay. So this is all about hollow sphere. Then suppose in electrostatics we have also done for solid charged sphere. Solid charged sphere. So suppose I have a solid charged sphere. Okay, everywhere there is charge uniformly distributed. So the density of the charge is constant. That means every volume should have same charge. So it is uniformly distributed. Now if I want outside, it is still the same. Outside the formula remains the same. You can draw Gaussian surface here and then apply Gauss law. Same answer will come. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Total charge is capital Q, let's say, divided by this distance r from the center, r square. Okay, so if you do for solid mass, okay, this is solid sphere. Earth should be treated like this or the previous one, like this, because Earth is a solid sphere. At least approximately, right? I know there are molten liquids inside, but those details we will neglect. So if it is a solid mass with total mass capital M, then outside the gravitational field, here we can also write G, remember, that will be equal to just this formula. This will be replaced by capital G, total charge will be replaced by total mass, and this R is from center to observation point. So this is your small r. Okay, and that you can also write in terms of this radius and this height. Height is measured from here from the surface. So then if I write that way, it will be Gm by r plus h whole square. And here direction will be always towards the center, because here it was radially outwards. If it is positive charge, negative charge means towards the center. So basically you should consider mass as negative charge, because negative charge will have field towards the center, and we know gravity is always towards the center. Okay, so for hollow sphere also, solid sphere also, outside the field formula is same. It is inversely proportional to distance square from the center. Interesting thing is, what if it is inside? So this is for outside. Okay, so just mention it quickly. And this is what kind of sphere? Solid charged non-conducting sphere. If it is conducting, then the charge will stay only on the outer surface. So it will be similar to your shell. Okay. Fine. Let me remove only the formula now. Okay. Now here, suppose I want field. This is center at a distance r inside. This is capital R. Okay. So here, if I want field inside, then the best formula to remember, which I also do, is rho r by 3 epsilon naught, and direction is away. If it is positive charge, it is away. So this is the formula I remember. So rho r by 3 epsilon naught means in terms of mass charge. If I write, how I will write? Rho means what? Charge per unit volume. This whole volume I can write 4 by 3 pi r cube. So in terms of charge, if I write 3q by 4 pi epsilon naught is there, r cube, then this 3 epsilon naught r, 3 will cancel, so it will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. How this epsilon naught? This epsilon naught I took already, right? Only this 3 I did not write. 3 and 3 will cancel, so it will be r cube r by r cube. So this is the formula for electric field inside at a distance r from the center for a solid charged sphere. If you remember this formula, you can write this way, or you can directly try to remember this formula. Again, you can derive this by drawing a Gaussian surface, and then you have to include only the charge in this part. Remember, whenever you apply Gauss law, first you have to construct a Gaussian surface, then calculate the net flux. Net flux will be what? E into 4 pi r square, right? And then I want to write this as charge inside by epsilon naught. Charge inside, only this, in only this charge I have to calculate. Only this is inside, no? So inside this only, if I want, I have to multiply density with only this volume, 4 by 3 pi r cube. Then you can see 4 pi will cancel, r square will cancel with 1 r cube here, so r will be left. Then you will get this formula. Then you can write density as total charge by total volume. Actually volume will be 4 by 3 pi r cube, right? So that 3 will go here. So same way, if I give you a solid mass and I want solid mass and I want gravitational field at a distance r from the center, which is g only, that will be what? Just use this formula. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught will be g, q will be capital M, then small r divided by this r cube. So this is the formula. Okay, now in first PU also we have found g inside, but that time we used to write in terms of depth. Now depth means if this is the radius, depth of this point, depth means this. So in terms of depth, if I write, this formula will be what? G equal to, let me write GD now. G at a depth will be Gm by r cube, and this small r, how I can write? Capital R minus d, right? And then if I take 1 r this side, then this will become Gm by r square. This is value of G at the surface, because at the surface, if I ask, for example, at the surface, at this point if I ask, then at the surface if I ask, small r will be how much? Capital R. Put capital R here. So at the surface, your electric field will be Q by 4 pi epsilon naught r square. Similarly, what will be G at the surface if I ask? Gm by this small r will be capital R. If I want G at the surface, this is for G at this point, remember, at a distance r from the center. Okay, so Gm by r square. So G at the surface, we just write G only, right? So Gd will be equal to G, and that R by R is 1 minus D by R. This is the one that you remember in your first PU. Correct or not? It comes from here only. Okay. Please pause the video and write everything. Then in electrostatics, I have also given you electrostatics gravity. So if I have a ring of charge, okay, ring of charge, and at distance x from the center, that formula is also important. The electric field, how did we find? It was Q by 4 pi epsilon naught 2x divided by r square plus x square power 3 by 2. Was it 2x or just x? Maybe just x. Now suppose I don't remember this formula very clearly, then what I can do? Take one small dq here, small charge dq. Then find electric field here due to this dq. That will be in this direction, right? That will be your dE. Then you take component of this dE. One component will be here. One component will be here. Similarly, for this dq, your electric field will be this way. So that also will have your two components, one here, one here. So it is very clear that these components will cancel, only these components will add. So if I say this angle is theta, let me rub this diagram or this formula. So due to this dq, electric field will be away from dq, right? And this dq can be considered like a point charge. So electric field dE will have this angle theta here, which is same as this angle theta. So this component will be dE cos theta. So you can see that as I find electric field here due to different dq, I can see that these components will keep getting added and these components will keep getting cancelled. So this component will cancel, no need to write only these components will get added. So total electric field will be integral of dE cos theta, right? And dE will be what? Since this small dq is like a point charge, I can use the formula for point charge, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught dq by r square. R means distance between the point charge and the observation point. This radius is capital R. So this distance will be root over r square plus x square. So I have to write here distance square. No, so if you square this, you will get r square plus x square. In cos theta, from this diagram, I can write x by this hypotenuse, root of r square plus x square. Then when you integrate, you can see all these are constants. So only dq is the variable. So if you integrate dq, you will get total charge. So total charge 4 pi epsilon naught x divided by this one, what will you get? R square plus x square power 3 by 2. Right? So that is the electric field here. So what we have derived is, if you have a ring of charge, electric field at this point is in this direction and the magnitude is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught qx by r square plus x square power 3 by 2. X is distance from the center and capital R is radius of the ring. Capital Q is total charge of the ring. So this is ring of charge. Similarly, I may give you a ring of mass. And if I want you to find gravitational field at that point, first of all, direction you have to be careful. It will be towards, because it's attractive. And let me not write P. For electric field, I'll write only E. Then what will be your EG? This 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught you will write as G. Capital Q you will write M. X by R square plus X square power 3 by 2. So like that you can do for sheet of charge also. Here sheet of mass. So that way you guys try to do more. Okay. Fine. So this was about field. Now if you put here any charge, let us say not charge. Here I should put charge or mass. So if you put some mass here M, then that mass will experience a force that will be m into this g. This is also your acceleration due to gravity, correct? No, see, it doesn't look, formula doesn't look same as acceleration due to gravity of a sphere. For sphere it was very different. So it will be just multiply with this m, that will give you the force on this mass if you keep a mass here. So if I ask you to draw some diagrams now, Okay, for example, if I give you a hollow mass, and I ask you to plot gravitational field, which is G, or you can write EG, versus distance from the center. Then till you reach the surface, which is capital R, let's say radius is capital R, till your x is less than capital R, that means you are inside. So here you know G is 0, so your graph will be something like this. So G will be 0 inside, and outside it will suddenly jump and then it will decrease. So here G is inversely proportional to x squared. Right? We have seen that already. Now, if it is a solid mass, then for solid mass, just see the formula. Your G is G m by r cube into x. So this was the formula for your G inside, or at a depth also you can say. So then you can see your G is proportional to x. Now the graph will go like this because G is proportional to x, right? So proportional means it will be linear, right? So this is how your G will vary. So inside, as long your x, which is distance from the center, I can write small r also. If I write small r, then you write small r everywhere. So as long as your distance from the center is less than radius, you are inside, no? And when you are inside, it is proportional to the distance from the center. Once you are outside, it decreases as 1 by r square. Okay, so all this you should try to remember, the graphs and all. Now you can even use Gauss law. Okay, so how do we write in electrostatics Gauss law? The gravitational field, the electric field dot area vector for a closed surface is equal to charge inside by epsilon naught, right? In electrostatics. So same way in gravitation chapter you can write the gravitational field dot area vector. This area vector represents a small part of the Gaussian surface, is equal to, instead of charge inside, you have to calculate mass inside divided by epsilon naught. What I should write? So wherever is epsilon naught, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, we write G, right? So wherever is epsilon naught, we should write 1 by 4 pi G. So this is by epsilon naught. So by epsilon naught will be 1 by 4 pi G in this chapter. So this will go up. So 4 pi G mass inside. Okay. So let's say they give you let us do a problem now, which is based on Gauss law applied to gravitation chapter. But okay, so they have given you a spherical mass whose density is not constant. So we cannot directly use the formula for solid sphere which we have derived, because for solid sphere we assume the density was constant. Here density is changing with this r, and what is this r? Distance from the center. So there is a spherical mass whose radius is capital R. At the center, your small r will be 0 because small r is distance from center, remember. So here small r is 0. So when small r is 0, your density will be rho naught, maximum. As your small r increases, as you go this way, your density is increasing. So as density is increasing, you can clearly see that it is a non-uniform mass distribution. Okay, now so directly don't use the old formula for solid sphere which we have derived. Now they want find G. Now though they may say G, it is what? Gravitational field, remember. Acceleration due to gravity or gravitational field at a distance r by 2 from the center. Matlab somewhere here they want. At this point they want. So this is very similar to the problem where they will give you some spherical charge and they'll ask you electric field inside. So what do? We use Gauss law. So here also same thing. So draw a Gaussian surface. This is my Gaussian surface, right? Then the left side of Gaussian surface is left hand side of Gauss law is closed integral E dot dA. Now you can see electric field will be radially inwards. Area vector will be outwards, right, for every small part of this surface. So area vector is outwards, electric field is inwards. So this dot product will have what angle between them? These two vectors will have what angle? 180. So this will be EG dA cos 180. Let me calculate only the magnitude because I know that the flux will be inward. So this will be your, after applying the dot product, you will get this formula. Cos 180 is minus 1, no? So modulus, if I take minus 1, will be plus 1 only. Now, since it is a spherical surface and by symmetry, I can assume everywhere E is constant. So take E outside. And then integral of this small area will give you total area of this sphere. Total area of this sphere will be what? 4 pi r by 2 square. 4 by r by 2 square. That will be Eg 4 pi. No, 4 will cancel with this 4. So pi r square. Right, students? Now this Eg is your G, remember. Okay, don't get confused because we are doing for gravitational chapter. Now this is the left hand side. Now for the right hand side, we have to calculate the total mass inside the Gaussian surface. So total mass inside we have to calculate. So mass inside. Now directly you cannot write density into this volume because density is not constant. So first you have to divide this sphere. So let us draw this one separately here. Let me draw a little bigger now. So this is your red color which I have used for my Gaussian surface, and this radius is r by 2. Correct na? So let me take a small shell here. Thin shell, okay, spherical shell, whose radius is r, thickness is dr. So first let me find mass of this. So mass of that small spherical shell will be density into volume of this. Volume of this spherical shell will be what? Area into thickness. Area will be 4 pi r square because it is a spherical shell and thickness is dr. All these things we have discussed while doing Gauss law for electrostatics. And this density is not constant. See, if this density was constant, what will happen? This will come outside. 4 pi will come outside. Then you have to integrate r square from 0 to r by 2. So you will get r cube by 3, which is nothing but volume of this red color sphere. No, because the small r upper limit is r by 2. Lower limit is 0. So when you put r by 2 here, you will get volume of this red color. But you cannot directly multiply density with volume. That can be done if density comes out. But density will come out only if it is constant. So here density is given as a function. What kind of function they gave you? Rho naught 1 minus r by r. 4 pi r square dr. Okay, now I want from 0 to this point which is r by 2. So this integration we have to do. Let us remember the left hand side of Gauss law was integral E dot dA, except now it is gravitational field which came out Eg into pi r square. Actually it is 4 pi small r square, but small r is r by 2 because we have to find electric field at this point, remember. So this is your Gaussian surface, right? Okay. Now integrate the first term. Rho naught is constant, 4 pi is constant, take it outside. So integrate 1 r square dr. So 1 r square, 1 into r square, it will be r cube by 3. Put upper limit, so r by 2 cube by 3. Lower limit is 0, no need to write. no need to write, no, lower limit is 0, then minus. Next term you have to integrate this r square dr. So 1 by r is constant, r into r square will be r cube. Integration of r cube will give you r power 4 by 4. Put upper limit, it is r by 2, power 4 by 4. So that will give you rho naught 4 pi r cube by, how much it will come? 2 cube is 8, so 3 into 8 minus this r will cancel, r power 4, so r power cube will be left. 2 power 4 is 2 to the 4, for 16 into 4, 4 into 16. Right, students? So then if I take r cube also common, let me take 8 also common, then I will get 1 by 3 minus 1 by 8. If I take common, 2 will be there, 4 2s are 8. So this will come, this 4 and 8 will be cancelled, 2, right? So my mass inside is coming rho naught pi r cube, 8 here, no, 24 here, 3 8s are 24, 8 3s are, so 8 minus 3 will be 5, and this 2 also was there, right? So 5 by 48 rho naught pi r power 3. So let me check once. Rho naught, 4 2s are 8, 2 will be there here, 3 and 8 LCM is 24, 3 8s are 8 3s are 8 minus 3 is 5, 2 into 24 is 48. So that is my mass inside. So now I can use Gauss law. So if I use Gauss law for gravitation chapter, what will I get? The left hand side was integral E dot dA mass inside by epsilon naught. Epsilon naught will be your 4 pi g, because it's 1 by epsilon naught, no? So 4 pi g into mass inside. So this magnitude we got Eg into pi r square equal to 4 pi g, and mass inside is 5 by 48 rho naught pi r cube, right? So this will give me Eg equals to 1 pi, I can cancel, r square with cancel with r, so it will be 4g, this will be also cancel, so it will be g rho naught 5g rho naught by 12 pi r. So it is interesting to see that your Eg is given by this formula. Okay, then rho naught was a constant which we have seen already, it is given in the question only, r is given in the question, so this is the formula for a gravitational field or G at a point which is r by 2 from the center of the original spherical mass which was given in the question. Okay, hope everything is fine. Pi got cancelled, r square got cancelled, here 4 I cancel, 5 by 12. So this way you can apply Gauss law to gravitation chapter also. Now let us see electrostatics, gravitation. Let us see for potential energy. So if you have two charges Q1, Q2, then potential energy, electrostatic potential energy, we write 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1, Q2 by R. Now remember, if the charges, if this was negative, then I have to write minus Q2, so minus it will be. So the point is, if the force is repulsive, it is positive. So if it is repulsive force, then it means both the charges are positive or both the charges are negative. So when you put positive positive or negative negative, your potential energy will be positive. Of course I have taken potential energy at infinity to be 0. to derive this formula. Similarly, for attractive force, it will be negative because one of the charge will be negative. Now, when it comes to gravitation, if you have two masses, m1, m2, then you don't have any other option. Gravitation is always attractive. So when you write the potential energy, you have to write minus because it is always attractive. And 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is G m1 m2 by r. Now another way to write this potential energy is multiply the charge of this with the potential here due to this charge. That also we can write, where potential will be what? Where this V is called potential at this point due to this charge. Okay, so keep this charge here, bring this charge from infinity to that point. The work done by you is called potential energy. Now instead of bringing Q2, if you bring unit charge, then you are calculating here potential. So potential is work done to bring unit charge from infinity to this point, and that will be giving you this formula, Q1 by R. Okay students, so this you have to substitute here, this you will get same thing only. So here also we can write that way. So U is equals to mass of this particle with potential produced by this particle. So this is called your gravitational potential. This V is called gravitational potential. And this is gravitational potential energy. Just like this is electric potential energy, this is electric potential. And this is formula for electric potential at a distance r due to this charge. This is the source charge. So when you write this formula, we bring a unit charge, remember. Okay. So this is potential energy between 2 point charges or 2 point masses. So whenever you want potential energy of a point charge at a point, so let us say there is some electric field here at this region. At this region there is electric field which is produced by some source charge, Then at some point P there will be potential which is work done to bring unit charge. Now here if I put a charge Q, then that charge will have potential energy which is given by Q into V with respect to this field. Without the field there is no concept of potential energy, remember. So similarly here, if there is a region where there is gravitational field due to some source mass, then gravitational potential energy will be m into V. So this is the gravitational potential energy of some mass m at a point where the gravitational potential is V. So having understood this, let us now find formulas for potential. So for a point charge at a distance r, if I want potential here, what was the formula? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q by R. Similarly, if you have point mass at a distance r, if you want gravitational potential, then it is minus G m by R, where m and q are the source mass here and source charge here. No need to put another charge. If you put another charge, then you are calculating potential energy. Potential only I want. And here minus sign intrinsically you have to put, so that if you put a point mass here, the force will be attractive. Here, depending on the sign of this charge, it may be attractive or it may be repulsive, right? Okay. Then I told you about spherical charge. Okay, so if you have a spherical hollow charge, then at a distance r outside, the potential is same as like due to point charge which is at its center. So if you put the whole charge at the center, the formula for potential here due to this hollow charge is same as potential due to this point charge, okay, which is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by r. It is expected also because electric field formula also was similar to that produced by a point charge outside, okay. But similarly here outside, if you have a, let me rub this one. So if you have a hollow mass, then at some distance r, your potential outside, gravitational potential outside is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught will be g, and this hollow mass, this q belongs to this total charge on the shell. So total mass is m, let's say, so minus we have to write m by r. So outside it is same as due to point charge, formula is same. Now here if it is hollow, inside your potential is constant, remember. Why potential is constant? Because it is electric field inside is 0. So if electric field is 0, potential is constant. So potential inside, I told you, is same as on the surface. And on the surface, I can use this formula, except I have to replace small r by capital R, where capital R is the radius of the shell. So this is true for point outside, right? If I come like this, like this, like this, like this, till here, when I reach, till that point, this formula will be true only, right? So at that point, the potential is just replace small r by capital R. But since we know electric field inside a hollow sphere is 0, potential inside hollow sphere has to be constant. And that will be therefore same as on the surface. So here, till you reach here, it is same only. So don't do the mistake of, if somebody will ask you find potential at this distance, and if this point is inside, then don't do the mistake of writing this small r here. It has to be capital R if the points are inside. Similarly for hollow mass, potential inside is same as on the surface, which is minus gm by capital R. Okay, keep that in your mind. This is for hollow sphere, because for hollow sphere we know electric field inside or gravitational field inside is 0 for hollow. But if I have a solid charge, non-conducting, if it is conducting, then you can apply the same formula as hollow sphere. Then outside it is same, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by r. Okay, don't let r square. Okay, that will be electric field potential we want, no. And this will be for this charge, and q is the total charge. Similarly, if you have a solid mass, solid charge, non-conducting, this is solid mass. So outside it is again same as this only, g m by r, minus sign we should remember. Minus is because the force is always attractive. Okay students, so keep that in mind. So these formulas are similar to the point charge formula. Okay, now let us see formula for potential inside a solid charged sphere, non-conducting. Okay, because if it is conducting, the charge will stay on the outer surface, so it will be like hollow sphere only. So for solid charged sphere, the charge is everywhere, uniformly distributed, again uniformly, then so density is constant, then at a distance r inside, okay, here at this point, your potential was q must be there, right? Total charge is q, let's say q by 8 pi epsilon naught r 3 minus r square by capital R square. Now this one we have done in the class, it was done for entrance. Okay, so please check the formula. One important thing is to realize that at the surface your potential must be how much? Q by 4 pi epsilon naught r. At the surface, so this formula should be true. And at the center, it will not be same as on the surface because it is not a hollow sphere. So for potential at the center, small r should be 0. So it will be 3 by 8 q by epsilon naught r. So if I write this as 3 by 2 times, then will be q by 4 pi epsilon naught r. So this is nothing but 3 by 2 times potential on the surface. So this I have told you, we have used this result in many problems also. So potential at the center is 3 by 2 times potential on the surface. Similarly, for gravitation chapter, suppose you have a solid mass, not hollow mass, solid mass. Earth is a solid mass, so many problems can come based on this. Now at a distance r from the center, inside if I want potential, inside, then the formula can be found by remembering this formula. Q will be your M. Okay. 2 we have to write one extra 2, which is this 8 I can write 2 into 4, right? Then 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught I can write G. Then here 2R, then 3 minus R square by capital R square. Then minus sign we should not forget for gravitational potential. And therefore you can check that at the center small r will be 0, no, at the center. If this is potential at this point, distance r from the center. If I want at the center, what I should do? Small r I should put 0. So potential at the center will be 3 by 2 times potential on the surface. And on the surface, we have already seen the formula. For surface, just put small r equal to capital R. Because small r will be capital R. Capital R is radius of the solid sphere. Okay. Again, when I write this formula, density is taken to be constant. Okay, so this formulas I wanted you to just check once. Now students, suppose I put a charge here. Sorry, here I should put charge Q. Then if I ask potential energy of this charge, it will be Q into V. V we know. So use this V here, that's it. Similarly, if somebody puts a mass here, and then after putting the mass, if they want potential energy, gravitational potential energy, it will be m into potential at that point. That's it. Okay. And how can we put mass? Maybe I'll make a tunnel here and I will drop a particle from the top. So as the particle accelerates at this point, if they want you to find the potential energy, first find the potential. So just remember the formula for potential. Potential energy you can directly find. Mass into potential. Okay. By the way, if I ask you the graph of potential, electric potential versus distance from the center. And at the center, remember it is 3 by 2 times on the surface. Surface means capital R, no? So this is surface. This is surface. So here it is more. At the center means small r is 0. So your graph will go like this. So at the center it is more than on the surface. If it is for, this is for solid charge. Solid charge. For hollow, if I ask, hollow, then it will be constant till you reach the radius. Because inside potential will be same as on the surface. Then as you go outside, it decreases as 1 by r, right? So same thing you can do for gravitation, except you may have to plot it down because it is negative. So it will come like this, and this will be constant here like this, constant like this. Okay, so that part you try yourself. Then let us also see for ring. So if I give you a ring of some charge q, then at a distance x, if I want potential, not electric field also we did today, potential, then the formula is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by root over r square plus x square. R is this. Okay, this formula you can easily divide this into small point charges, dq charges, find potential due to one dq here, and then integrate. Here no need to take components because potential is scalar quantity. Similarly, if I give you a ring of mass at a distance x, if I want here gravitational potential, how will you write? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught will be g. This will be your source mass divided by root over r square plus x square, which is basically this r, no? You can write small r also, but remember small r should be this hypotenuse, which is root over r square plus x square, and we must put minus sign. So if I put here some mass small m, then what will be its potential energy there? If I ask you gravitational potential energy, simple, m into v, so it will be minus gmm by root over r square plus x square. And from here to here, when it comes, if they ask you to find the kinetic energy here, you can use law of conservation of mechanical energy. So kinetic energy here plus potential energy here should be equal to kinetic energy here plus potential energy here. No friction in this problem, right? Of course, this should be fixed here. If this is also moving, then you have to use conservation of momentum also. If this is also moving, okay. Okay, then we come to these problems of orbits, okay. But before I do that problem, see here some interesting concepts in gravitation. The comparisons are done. Now you can find many formulas of electrostatics, convert them into formula of gravitation. Only remember that mass is always positive and it is the forces is always attractive. So gravitational potential must be negative due to any source mass. That you remember. Now, suppose I have here one mass m1 and here one mass m2, and I throw them like this with some velocity, tuck like that. Then they'll start revolving. Okay. Now when they will revolve around their common center of mass. Okay, a free system. No, suppose this pen, if I throw to you, it will rotate and it will not only translate, it will rotate also. It will rotate around which axis? When the body is free, it will always rotate around center of mass. So let us say m2 is greater than m1, so center of mass will be somewhere here. Okay students, so this will rotate around center of mass like this. This will rotate around center of mass like this. So this is also called your binary stars. So if you have two stars like this revolving, they don't revolve around, they don't have common orbit. One may have smaller orbit, one may have bigger orbit. So you can, now only you have understood one thing. Bigger mass will have center of mass near to the bigger mass. So bigger mass will rotate in smaller orbit. Expected also, right? Okay. Now, let us say this whole distance is given as capital R. And this distance is, let's say, R2. This distance is R1. Then capital R need not be given, but let me write capital R. Then of course capital R should be R1 plus R2. Now this will be moving with some velocity. If it is going like this will be having some velocity v2 and this will be having some velocity v1. Velocity will be tangent to the orbit, right? So these are the velocities. Now listen carefully. Let us find the location of center of mass first. For that we will use the formula xc equals to m1 x1 plus m2 x2 by m1 plus m2. So this is the coordinate of center of mass from the origin. So if I choose origin here itself, at the center of mass only, then what will be the x coordinate of center of mass? 0, because I have chosen origin at the center of mass itself. m1. What is x1? X coordinate of the first particle. So that is minus r1 this side. Minus r1. And this coordinate is x coordinate of the second particle from this origin. it is plus R2. This will be M1 plus M2. If you cross multiply, it will be 0. So from here you have understood one very important fact. M1 R1 will be M2 R2. This is true, okay? This is true for any two particles which have a center of mass somewhere, and R1, R2 are distance of the particles from the center of mass. Now in terms of this capital R, so you can see from here R1 by R2 will be M2 by M1. So from here if I want R1, what will you do? The ratio formula I have told many times. So R1 by R2 is M2 by M1. So R1 will be M2 by M1 plus M2 into total R. Total R matlab R1 plus R2, which is this capital R. Similarly, R2 will be what? R2 will be M1 by M1 plus M2 times capital R. Right? Yes or no? Okay. Now, how to find these velocities? Well, if it is moving in a circle, then somebody must provide centripetal force. Who will provide? This mass only. In what form? Gravity, because this is mass, right? Not charge, mass. So there will be gravitational force like this, which will provide centripetal force for this particle. And for this particle also, this particle will provide same force only. Forces are equal and opposite, no? Action, reaction. So for M1, if I want to know the velocity or the radius, one of them, okay? So M1, if I do, what I should do? The gravitational force between M1 and M2 will provide centripetal force for this. So M1 V1 square by radius of this is what? R1. And what is F? G M1 M2 by distance between them is capital R is equals to M1 V1 square by R1. R1 we have found here. M2, this will go up, M1 plus M2 divided by R. So in place of small r1, I have done the substitution here. So m1 will cancel, right? So if I cross multiply my v1 square, let me write that side. So v1 square will be what? If I cross multiply, one r will be cancelled, right? So v1 square will be gm2 square by r m1 plus m2. So v1 will be square root of this m2 square by r, or I can write m1 plus m2 times r. So that will be my v1. Then v2 you can find similarly. So for v2 you can directly substitute, or we can do this way. Look here. For m2 also same force only will provide centripetal force. So m2 v2 square by radius of the second orbit. For the second particle, it is moving in this circle. So in centripetal force, we have to write radius of the circular orbit, no, which is r2. So F is what? G m1 m2 by distance between them equals to m2 v2 square by r2. Now r2 was, what was r2? I have derived it before. So let me just remind you, r1 plus r2 is capital R, and m1 by m2 is r2 by r1. So r2 will be m1 by m1 plus m2 times r, right? So r2 will be m1 r, here m1 plus m2. So I lose m2, right? I lose m2. So we cross multiply, v2 will be root over similar formula, g m1 square will be there, but divided by m1 plus m2 into divided by r. Right? Okay. Now, keeping these formulas in our mind for V1 and V2. So, is V1 and V2 same? No, it is not same. This is see, M2 square, this is M1 square. So, it is not same at all. In fact, if you calculate the ratio of the velocities, if they ask, what will I get? Everything here will cancel. I will get M2 by M1. Which is correct only because M1 V1 must be equal to M2 V2. Why? Because total momentum of this system must be conserved. Total momentum of this system must be conserved. So if one has positive momentum, M2 V2, other one should have negative momentum. If there are no external forces. So if they start with zero momentum, they should have zero momentum later also. Now, listen carefully. Suppose I try to find angular velocity of the first one. See, it is rotating now. So let me say time period. So time period of the first one will be what? 2 pi r1 by v1. Right? Now, 2 pi v1 is this root over g m2 square by m1 plus m2 into r. And r1 was m2, right, by m1 plus m2 into r. So that was your time period. Now you can see this root m2 square and this m2 will cancel. So you will get 2 pi, let me take this up, root of m1 plus m2, visible, right? Okay, r divided by g, this I took up, m2 got cancelled, r by m1 plus m2. Okay, so my time period of revolution of the first particle is coming 2 pi root over, and this r, let me put inside, will be r cube divided by m1 plus m2 here, m1 plus m, there is no square root here. So if I put this inside, it will be m1 plus m2 whole square. So m1 plus m2 g into v2. No, v2 was outside. So this is the time period of the first one. For second one, you can check, it will be same only. Because for second one, it will be what? 2 pi r2 by v2. Correct? No? So it will be 2 pi. v2 is what? v2 is this root over g, no, v1 is this. v2 was this only, but this was m1 square, right? For v2. This formula was this only, but it was m1 square for v2. So m1 square by m1 plus m2 into r. This is your v2. Then r2. What was r2? Because you know m1 by m2 is r2 by r1. So r1 will be, r2 will be m1 by m1 plus m2 into r. See, you can see m1s will cancel with root m1 square. So remaining thing is same as this only, right? This will go up, like here it went up. This will also go up. So what we have realized, one very nice thing, and that is T1 is equal to T2, which means angular velocity must be same. If time periods are same, angular velocity must be same. So this is something very important to remember. Okay. Now here I have told you that two particles like this will rotate around common center of mass. Will rotate around common center of mass. But if I have one very heavy particle whose mass is almost infinity compared to the other particle, then center of mass will be here itself, because this is so heavy compared to this. So then what we can say, this will stay at rest and this will revolve around this. That is the one that we use for planets and for satellites and all. So now it is very easy to find the velocity, which is called orbital velocity. So this distance is, let's say, small r, which is the radius of the orbit. And if I consider this has some radius, let's say capital R, and this height is small h, then here the force will be providing the centripetal force, the gravitational force will be providing the centripetal force. Now the radius of the orbit is r, but there is only one orbit now. And F I can write gmm by center to center r square. Because this is outside, no? So if it is outside, you can use the gravitational field here will be same as the whole mass concentrated at its center. M v naught square by r. So one r will cancel, m will cancel. So root over gm by r, which I can also write gm by r plus h. So one thing you have to notice is v naught does not depend on mass of this particle, the one which is revolving. So my time period will not depend on my mass. So if it is satellite, then does not depend on mass of satellite. Okay, so this you have to remember. Okay, now I want to revise with you how much work is needed or how much energy is required to move an object from one place to another place in the presence of a planet, let's say Earth. Okay, so here is your Earth or some planet, and I want to move an object of small m mass from here to here. The path is not important, remember, because it is a conservative force, right? So let's say from A to B, I want to move a body. So the work done by the external force from A to B will be equal to, two parts can be there. One is potential energy can change. So whatever is the change that you have to give by doing work, also kinetic energy may change. Okay. Now if you do it very slowly, if the body is moved slowly, then your kinetic energy can be taken to be same in both the cases because you are moving it slowly, no acceleration. So kinetic energy here and here you can take both 0 or both same only. So then the work done will be just UB minus UA, which is delta U. Again, this is work done by external, so don't put minus U. Work done by conservative force is minus delta U, remember. So this concept you remember. Okay, so some few things based on this. So now let us say I move an object from Earth starting from the surface till I reach some height B, and this is h. Now if h is not very small so that you cannot consider g to be constant, then to find the work, the path is not important. I can go this way and then curve this way and then come here because it is conservative force. So work done from A to B, if I move it slowly or if they don't inform any velocities are not informed, then I can write delta U, which means UB minus UA. Now there is a standard formula to remember, but let me show you how it comes. So UB is minus GMM by center to center. This radius is R, let's say. So this is R plus H. Minus potential energy when it is here will be, this will become plus GMM by R. Right? Okay. So this is now GMM 1 by R minus 1 by R plus H. So let me take now LCM. So R into R plus H minus R into R plus H minus R. So R gets cancelled, right? So my work done, see this is again if I start from surface to here only. Otherwise, find the potential energy for two positions and find the change in potential energy. That also if kinetic energy is not changing. So work done will be what? GMM H by R plus H. Now let me try to write this formula in a different way. Let me write this as Gm by R square M H. Now if I put R square, I must write R here also. R plus H, right? So I wrote one R here and I wrote this R as R square. By doing that, this will be my G on the surface, right? That is the formula for G on the surface. So I can write here work done as this M, this is your G, this is your H. This R let me bring down. So R plus H by R, which finally it becomes mgh by 1 plus H by R. So this is a formula you will find in many textbooks. People use this to find directly work done to take a body from surface to some height h. Now if your height is very small, if this is very small compared to this, then this will be almost 0 compared to 1, right? In that case it will become mgh. Okay, but if your height is, let's say, r by 2, then you cannot neglect this, right? Compared to 1, then you can solve. Now this is if I go from surface to some point, that also without any change in kinetic energy. Now suppose I want to put a satellite. This is Earth, this is one orbit, this is one orbit. So a satellite is moving. I want to put this to this orbit. So work done to put a satellite from one orbit to another. Now here kinetic energy will also change. So you can write this way, two ways. You can find change in kinetic energy, change in potential energy, or you can try to remember energy, total energy of a satellite. So let us calculate total energy of a satellite. So total energy of a satellite will be what? Kinetic energy is half m orbital velocity squared. Potential energy is minus gmm by center to center, matlab radius of the orbit, no? And what is orbital velocity? Orbital velocity is root over gm by small r, because this Earth is assumed to be fixed. Mass of the Earth is assumed to be very large compared to mass of the satellite. So you substitute here, you will get half m gm by small r minus gm by small r, gmm by small r. So this will give you, let me write here. So the energy of the satellite in any orbit is given by half minus 1 common. See, everything is common. Half minus 1 is minus half. So it will be minus gmm by 2r. So try to remember that. So to find the work done, because kinetic energy is also changing, potential energy is also changing. If you want this to be in the orbit, means it has to revolve only. So this is similar to, you know, the problems in chemistry, where in physics we will do in atoms chapter, work done to, you know, take the, or energy required to take the electron from one orbit to another orbit. So you have to subtract the energy of the electron in the two orbits. So this will be your energy in the higher orbit to lower orbit. Okay, this is basically your delta E, which is delta E is what? Delta K plus delta U, because E is K plus U. So delta E will be delta K plus delta U. Okay, because here both are changing. So work done will be what? E2 will be what? Minus GMM by 2R2 minus minus plus GMM by 2R1. So W will be GMM by 2, 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. So if you want to take it to higher orbit, your R2 will be more. If R2 is more, 1 by R2 will be smaller, 1 by R1 will be larger, which means you need to do positive work. Obviously, if you want to move the body from lower orbit to higher orbit, you have to spend energy. You have to spend energy, right? So this is also energy required. Now, similar question came in JEE, but small twist they have done. What they did was, they took the body, they started the satellite from the surface of the Earth to some orbit. This is orbit. So from here to here. Now, if you want to try to put in the orbit, it has to revolve also. Not like the previous one where you want to simply take the body from here to here. Okay. So this is, right now it is kinetic energy is 0. That is the difference. Potential energy though it will have no, because from center it is at some distance. So here the work required in that case will be energy of this orbit minus energy at this location. And this will be minus gmm by this r. That will be given in terms of radius of the Earth, 2r, remember. And here there is no kinetic, so E1 is K1 plus U1, but there is no K1, so only U1 for this point actually. Orbit I cannot say, so that will be only minus gmm by capital R. So work required will be minus gmm by 2r plus gmm by capital R. So if you want to put it in an orbit whose radius of the orbit is, let's say, twice of the radius of Earth, then you put here 2r and then solve. Okay, students, but be careful with these two. So I'm not writing u2 minus u1, or I'm not writing k2 minus k1. I'm writing e2 minus e1, which is k2 minus k1 plus u2 minus u1. But for this, there is no k1 because I started from the surface of the Earth, from rest. Okay, so that you remember. Okay, now suppose you are here and your body is here and you want this to go to infinity. That means you want this body of mass m to escape from the gravitational pull. Then how much velocity I should give? To find that, we will use conservation of energy. So here you are giving some orbit, some velocity v naught, or let us say ve, in order to escape. So kinetic energy is half m ve square. Potential energy is minus gmm by r, because you are starting from the surface. When you reach here, you may have some kinetic energy. This is velocity at infinity, and once you reach infinity, potential energy will be 0. Now if you want to calculate the minimum escape velocity, then this you should put 0. Otherwise you keep it there. If you give velocity more than escape velocity, then after reaching infinity also it will have some kinetic energy. If you want to calculate that velocity at infinity or kinetic energy at infinity, then use this formula. But if you want minimum escape velocity, then here you can take this one, that side, solve. You will get root over 2gm by r. Okay, so keep that in your mind. So that much escape velocity you should have. So when a satellite, a body is thrown with that velocity from the surface of Earth, it will escape. What about from some height? So let us say our body is already orbiting with some velocity. When it is orbiting with some velocity, how much velocity it has? Root over gm by r. That is the orbital velocity, right? Now with that orbital velocity, it will revolve around the Earth, and at that point, its kinetic energy will be half m v naught square. That will be the kinetic energy right now when it is orbiting, and potential energy will be minus gmm by this r, because all these points are outside this Earth, right? Okay, now suppose you want this to go to infinity, then you have to increase the velocity. but you don't have to give it up to escape velocity because it already has this velocity. Now to go to infinity, what should be this velocity? Let us check. So right now, see, right now it will never go to infinity. With this kinetic energy, it will never go to infinity. Why? See, add once. How much will you get? Half gmm by r minus gmm by r. So that will be your negative. So it already has negative energy here. So why will it go to infinity where energy is zero? The body will be more stable here only, no? But you can force it by giving it velocity, by increasing kinetic energy. So here, suppose I give it some velocity to v escape, let's say. I convert this velocity into this velocity. Now, my half m ve square plus whatever potential energy it has minus gmm by r. When I increase the kinetic energy, it will try to go in a bigger orbit. I want that orbit to go to infinity. So total energy there at infinity, let me take 0 so that I can calculate the minimum kinetic energy required. So from here, if you try to solve this, you will get VE equal to root over 2gm by r. Whereas right now it is traveling with what velocity? Root over gm by r. So I have to give how much increase in the velocity? The increase in the velocity should be VE minus VO. Now VE, if you look carefully, is root 2 times VO. So root 2 minus 1 times VO, which is VO is root over gm by small r. Okay, so don't confuse with this formula. Okay, this is from orbit. If you want this satellite to go to infinity with minimum kinetic energy required, then you have to use this formula. If you give more than this kinetic energy, once it reaches infinity, it will have some kinetic energy. Okay, so remember that. Now, you know that this is your sun and your planet is actually moving in a elliptical orbit. It's moving in a elliptical orbit, right? Now, if you take a point, let's say here, then after some time it may have reached here. Okay, a very small interval, you can take this as a straight line. So during that interval, it will move at distance, vector distance or displacement v bar delta t, and this is your r bar. Now you know that cross product of two vectors gives you the, so if you have, this is a bar and this is b bar, then if you take cross product and take magnitude, that will give you the area of parallelogram formed by a bar and b bar. Okay, this parallelogram. So this cross product's magnitude is given by this area. You can check AB sine theta you will get, right? That means if you calculate this area, then that will be the area of this triangle will be your half of this cross product. So if I take this vector cross this vector, I will get this area of this triangle. Okay, so the area of this triangle delta a bar, let me write, which will be r bar cross this way. Anyways, you know area vector is perpendicular to the plane of the area. So this area vector I can write half into cross product of r bar cross v bar delta t. Okay, now delta t is just a scalar, so let me divide by delta t. You get half by magnitude. of r bar cross v bar. No need to put magnitude because I wrote here vector symbol, right? Now, if I multiply by mass, next step let me do, let me divide by mass and multiply by mass. Then this is your momentum. And r cross momentum, momentum will be this way only, no? Along the velocity, instantaneous velocity. So r cross momentum is what? Angular momentum. So this is called your areal velocity, which is angular momentum divided by twice in 2 into mass of the planet, if this is sun. Okay, now look carefully. The force acting on this planet is the gravitational force, which will be always towards the center of the sun. So this force will not create any torque about the sun. So torque about sun will be 0. If torque is 0, then your angular momentum about sun, this is angular momentum about sun only, because this r bar is measured from sun, remember. So this angular momentum that we have calculated is about sun, because the tail of this r bar is at the sun, no, tail of the vector. So if torque is 0, angular momentum must be constant, which means angular momentum constant means what? Areal velocity will be constant. So it will sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time, which is coming from law of conservation of angular momentum, remember. And that is because the gravitational force is a central force. The force on the planet by the sun will act along the line joining the centers. So that you keep in mind. And if you have more than one planet, by the way, since angular momentum is conserved, what does it mean? It means if this is your sun, if this is sun and it is going in this orbit, okay, then when it is farthest from the sun, its velocity will be minimum. When it is nearest to the sun, velocity must be maximum. This must be maximum, this must be minimum. You may think why? Because this r is maximum and this r is minimum. Yes or no? Now what is the angular momentum when it is here? R m v1. No need to write sine theta, which is 90 degree. At this point, your r bar and your v bar will be perpendicular, not at this point. At this point, your r bar will be here, v bar will be here. So that angle may not be 90. This v bar. But whatever may be the angle, you can use that angle to find the angular momentum. So when it is here, farthest from the sun, this is the angular momentum. When it is nearest, what is the angular momentum? R2 m v2. But since angular momentum is conserved, so these two must be equal. That means R1 v1 must be equal to R2 v2. So from here also we can find the ratio of velocities if we know ratio of the distances. And the final thing that you should know is the square of the time period of a satellite around the sun is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. Semi-major axis means half of this. Half of this. Okay, and that A you should be able to find in terms of R1 and R2. So if you have done coordinate geometry in mathematics, in terms of eccentricity, you can find this distance in terms of R1 and R2, in terms of eccentricity. So those things you try. And if the orbits are circular, then you write t square is proportional to r. So t1 by t2 square will be equal to r1 by r2 cube for any given planet. Okay. So these things I have covered. Just see how much you have understood and let me know if there are doubts.